We got the Chargers going up against the Falcons this weekend. Who do you think is going to win in Atlanta and why?
I mean, I just want to be transparent. Both teams are not in the position that Kyle and I had predicted to start the season. We thought Atlanta would be in the bottom tier of the South. We thought that the Chargers would be one of the best teams in the league. And they're literally in the opposite predictions of what we had assumed. You know, the Falcons are first place in the NFC South, and the Chargers are just fighting for relevancy at this point. I know they're only a game behind the Chiefs, but it's like they're not winning in the capacity that we thought they would after the free agency that they had, especially with the acquisitions of J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, and so many others. But now you go and you look at it, and like Kyle said, it's the opposite because of injuries. JC's out for the year. Mike Williams has a high ankle sprain. Keenan Allen's barely played more than a game or two this season because of that hamstring injury. Obviously, you have Joey Bosa out for the season. It is just something after something after something. It's one thing after another, and it's almost hindering the capability of performing because you're putting all the pressure on Justin Herbert. You forget that you have Austin Eckler in the backfield, but then they don't forget because he's their leading receiver in terms of receptions and yards. It's almost kind of crazy. I mean, I'm looking at the statistics right now, and well, maybe not in yards, excuse me, but in receptions, Austin Eckler has 53 targets. That's more than Devontae Adams, and that's more than multiple top number one receivers in the NFL thus far. I mean, that's rivaling almost Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is somewhere in the 60s. That's just ridiculous that a running back has that many receptions. So that goes to show there's not a lot of faith outside of the receivers that are not Mike Williams and that are not Keenan Allen. So I'm going to go with the Falcons because I feel like the Falcons got a big confidence booster last week. Marcus Mariota has been playing great with the secondary hurt, or should I say not playing efficiently as much as they should be in LA. I think that Drake London is going to have a big game. Kyle Pitts is a walking mismatch, but I think that Kyle Pitts will be locked up because Derwin James is the best cover safety in the league. We saw what he did to Travis Kelce just a couple of months ago, and I'm pretty sure that Travis Kelce is just a little bit better than Kyle Pitts. So I think from that perspective, Atlanta is going to have to lean on the run game, and I think that they're going to have to keep the ball away from Justin Herbert because we all know that in this Brandon Staley offense, they throw it a lot. I mean, Justin Herbert is throwing it 40, 50 times a game, week in and week out. And I understand that's because they feel like they can't run the ball. But I personally, I'm not understanding why Austin Eckler doesn't get the ball more than he already does. So I'm going to go with the Falcons. I will say that this could be a close one, especially because this one's in Atlanta. Atlanta's defense isn't exactly something stellar. And if Justin Herbert were to light it up, I could see this being another shootout. So I got Atlanta winning this one 28-24. Going to be one of those close games that come down to the wire. However, something to pay attention for, the Chargers did sign a backup kicker because Hopkins is hurt. So something to monitor and see if the consistency is going to be working there on special teams. So I'll definitely take Atlanta, but it will be a close game.
Yeah, honestly, if I had looked at this game a couple of weeks ago and you take away all the injury issues that the Chargers have dealt with this year, I would have thought the Chargers would win this game by probably 2 touchdowns. Just because their offense is just solid from top to bottom. I don't have that faith anymore. And I know they're coming off of a bye week, but the injury issues are just so paramount with this team. I don't know how they're going to be able to overcome those injuries. So, Kev, I'm with you on this one. I think the Falcons are going to win this one in a stunner. I don't think a lot of people are thinking that the Falcons are going to win this game. But from what I've seen from them the last couple of weeks, they've given me enough faith to actually pick them in this game. And Kev, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't believe I'm actually picking them. So when I look back to that game against the Panthers last week, with the Falcons specifically, I thought that they were amazing offensively, especially in that fourth quarter, because that fourth quarter, both the Panthers and the Falcons were just matching touchdowns back and forth. And I will say, even though that the Panthers looked like they were going to win the game at the end based on some, I would say, mental mistakes by the Panthers, game ends up going to overtime. And then the Falcons capitalize it on hitting a game-winning field goal and getting them the win and getting them first place in the NFC South. And then, you transition into this game. I think there's a very good chance that they could be able to replicate the success that they had against the Panthers when they go up against the Chargers this week. Because let's face it, Kev, this Chargers defense is not that good. And I know that injuries have played a major factor with them this year. Like you said, J.C. Jackson's out for the rest of the year. Granted, they do have Derwin James, but, Joey Bosa's out for the rest of the year. So it just seems from, I guess, a unit perspective defensively, this defense can't be had. And when I look back to how the Chargers played against the Seahawks the week before their bye, they got absolutely annihilated by Seattle. Geno Smith was effective. Kenneth Walker was effective. And even though that the Seahawks have really been kind of one of the more surprising teams this year, the fact that they put up 37 points against that Chargers defense was spectacular as far as you're looking at it from the Seahawks perspective, but it was an absolute nightmare from the Chargers perspective. And even though that I wouldn't say that the Falcons have superstars on their offense, but they have guys that can be effective. Kyle Pitts, I think, is going to be a major factor. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets somewhere between 6 to 8 targets. I wouldn't be surprised on the run game that Tyler, I'm going to try to get his last name right, Tyler Algier. I'm probably butchering his last name, but if you're a Falcons fan, you know the potential with this, with him. Tyler's a solid running back. He's able to get effective runs on the ground. He's also able to extend plays after first contact. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has a solid game on the ground. And then as long as Marcus Mariota is just consistent in his overall efficiency, in his overall completion percentage, I think that by and large, I think the Falcons have the requisite pieces to be able to get this win against the Chargers. The Chargers, we'll see what happens with them, because Keenan Allen is kind of up in the air with that hamstring issue. Joshua Palmer will return this week, so maybe they can kind of get kick-started on the offense a little bit, but they don't have Mike Williams. He's recovering from a high ankle sprain. So it just seems like the Chargers are just snake-bitten with injuries this year, and until they really get healthy as a unit, which they really can't because there are some guys that are just out for the rest of the year, I think the Chargers are going to relatively struggle. So when I looked at this game, I think it is going to be a high-scoring affair just because I think both teams defensively are going to struggle, and it's kind of been their MO this year. But I think Atlanta's going to come out on top. I think Marcus Mariota is going to do more than Justin Herbert in this matchup, which is crazy for me to say just because I know what Justin Herbert's capable of. It's just, I think the Falcons have a little bit more to work with here, and you tie in all the injuries on the defensive side of the ball with the Chargers. I think the Falcons are going to get the dub here. I'm going to say it's going to be a relatively close game. I think it's going to be a one-possession win for the Falcons when it's all said and done. If I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say it's going to be 31-27 in favor of the Falcons, and that would bump them up to 5-4 on the season 9 weeks into the year. And depending on how it works out throughout the rest of the NFC South, it could potentially even widen their margin for first place when it's all said and done.